For nearly 3 centuries, alien observers studied Earth from the darkness of space. Their probes hid among asteroids, inside lunar shadows, and in the cold silence beyond the outer planets. They watched quietly, cataloging everything about the strange, chaotic species that lived on the small blue world. They studied human wars and conflicts. They recorded broadcasts, mapped cities, and monitored military activity. They watched governments argue, alliances collapse, and nations compete against each other for power and resources. The more they studied humanity, the more convinced they became of one thing. Humans were weak. The species was divided by borders, culture, language, and ideology. Their technology was impressive for a young civilization, but still primitive by interstellar standards. They had barely stepped beyond their own planet. Their spacecraft were fragile, their weapons inefficient, and their societies constantly fighting themselves. To the Alien Command Council, Earth looked less like a rising civilization and more like a fractured world waiting to be claimed. After decades of observation, the verdict was entered into their interstellar archives. Earth, resource-rich. Native species, technologically limited. Threat level, negligible. A perfect target for quiet expansion. The invasion plan was simple. A small fleet would enter the system, disable planetary infrastructure, and secure orbital control before the humans even understood what was happening. Once resistance collapsed, automated harvesters would begin extracting resources from the oceans and crust. Within months, Earth would belong to them. The fleet arrived silently. 27 alien capital ships slipped into the solar system, their engines bending gravity as they moved through space. Their technology masked their presence until the last possible moment. Human satellites detected nothing until the fleet had already crossed the orbit of Mars. By the time the first alarms sounded on Earth, it was already too late. Across the planet, radar systems began reporting objects in high orbit that did not match any known spacecraft. Within minutes, communication networks began to fail. Satellites shut down one by one, their systems overwhelmed by signals no human technology could block. Military commands scrambled to respond. Fighter aircraft launched from airbases across the world. Missile defense systems powered up. Naval fleets moved into defensive positions. But the alien fleet never descended to meet them. Instead, a wave of energy spread across the planet's orbit. Every satellite went dark. GPS signals vanished. Global communication networks collapsed almost instantly. Humanity's eyes and ears in space were gone. Then the alien ships revealed themselves. Gigantic structures appeared above Earth's atmosphere, visible even from the ground. Massive metallic vessels hovered silently in orbit, their shapes unlike anything humanity had ever built. Panic spread across the planet. Governments attempted to issue emergency statements, but communication networks were already failing. Power grids began collapsing as alien systems interfered with electrical infrastructure. Cities went dark. Air traffic halted. Financial systems froze. Every attempt to launch weapons into orbit failed. Missile systems malfunctioned before reaching the upper atmosphere. Fighter aircraft lost navigation and were forced to return to base. Within hours, the entire world understood something terrifying. Humanity had no way to fight back. Above the planet, alien harvesters began descending slowly toward the surface. Huge mechanical structures entered the atmosphere and positioned themselves over oceans, deserts, and mineral-rich regions. To the alien fleet, the operation was proceeding exactly as predicted. Their data had been correct. Humanity was frightened, disorganized, and completely outmatched. On their command vessels, alien analysts observed the behavior of Earth's population with clinical curiosity. Human leaders broadcast desperate messages. Military forces attempted futile defensive measures. Civilian populations began to panic. All of it matched the projections. A primitive species facing an advanced civilization. Resistance was minimal. Victory was inevitable. But the alien observers had made one mistake. Their centuries of study had focused entirely on Earth. They had watched the surface, the cities, the governments, and the militaries. What they had never considered was the possibility that humanity had been preparing somewhere else. Far beyond the orbit of Pluto, in the cold darkness past the Kuiper Belt, something enormous drifted silently through space. It had been there for decades. Hidden from telescopes. Invisible to probes. Waiting. The structure was massive. Kilometers of reinforced hull, silent engines, and dormant systems spread across a vessel unlike anything humanity had ever revealed to the public. Inside, thousands of humans slept in cryogenic chambers. Soldiers. Pilots. Engineers. Scientists. Volunteers who had agreed to leave Earth behind for a mission that might never come. For 30 years, the vessel had remained quiet, drifting beyond the edge of the solar system. A hidden safeguard. Humanity's final insurance policy. And as the alien fleet settled into orbit above Earth, believing their conquest complete, a signal finally reached the silent giant in the darkness. A single encrypted message transmitted through deep space relays. Earth compromised. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Ark began to wake. Inside the hidden Ark, darkness ended with a quiet surge of power. Emergency systems activated across the colossal vessel as dormant reactors came online. Thousands of cryogenic chambers began cycling open one by one, releasing the men and women who had volunteered to become humanity's unseen guardians. For decades they had slept while the ship drifted silently beyond the edge of the solar system. Now alarms echoed through the massive corridors as lights illuminated the interior of the Ark for the first time in years. The message that woke them was short and unmistakable. Earth compromised. Every crew member understood what it meant. The day they had prepared for had finally arrived. The hidden Ark was never meant to be discovered. Officially, humanity had never built a starship capable of interstellar combat. Governments had funded space stations, lunar bases, and robotic missions to distant planets, but nothing remotely close to the enormous vessel now waking in deep space. That secrecy had been intentional. 30 years earlier, a handful of scientists and military strategists had reached a terrifying conclusion. Humanity was broadcasting its existence to the universe without any real way to defend itself. Radio waves, satellites, and exploration missions had announced Earth's presence to anyone capable of listening. If another civilization ever arrived with hostile intent, humanity would be completely exposed. No planetary defense system could stop a true interstellar fleet. Any structure near Earth would be detected and destroyed before it could react. So a different plan was created. Instead of defending Earth directly, humanity would build a weapon the enemy would never see coming. The Ark. Construction had taken place far from the public eye. Automated factories hidden in the outer solar system assembled its enormous structure piece by piece. Materials were mined from asteroids and transported quietly through deep space. The project was funded through layers of secret budgets and international cooperation that few people on Earth ever suspected. The Ark grew slowly in the darkness beyond Pluto. By the time it was complete, it had become the largest structure humanity had ever created. Nearly 8 kilometers long, the ship carried heavy armor capable of withstanding asteroid impacts and advanced energy weapons. Its internal hangars could deploy entire squadrons of spacecraft. Its weapon systems were designed for one purpose only: destroying enemy fleets. But the Ark was more than a warship. It was also an ark in the oldest sense of the word. Inside its vast interior were habitats capable of supporting thousands of people indefinitely. Agricultural systems, research laboratories, manufacturing facilities, and command centers were all built into the ship's layered structure. If Earth ever fell, the Ark would carry humanity into the stars. The volunteers who lived aboard had trained for decades. They had studied alien technology theories, simulated unknown combat strategies, and practiced operating every system the ship possessed. They had prepared for an enemy they had never seen. Now that enemy had arrived. On the Ark's command deck, officers moved quickly to their stations as status reports began flooding the central displays. The massive engines were powering up successfully. Weapon systems were responding. Navigation arrays were locking onto coordinates within the inner solar system. Earth's orbit appeared on the main display, surrounded by hostile vessels. 27 alien capital ships. Their formation showed confidence. They had already disabled most human infrastructure and were beginning planetary resource operations. To them, Earth was already conquered. Admiral Sofia Alvarez studied the tactical data in silence. She had spent half her life preparing for this moment. Every decision she made in the next few minutes would shape the survival of humanity. The Ark had one advantage. Surprise. Alien sensors had never detected the ship because it had never operated within the inner system. Every human spacecraft the aliens had studied had launched from Earth or nearby facilities. The Ark had come from somewhere else entirely. And its most powerful technology was something the aliens had never seen before. The gravitational jump drive. Unlike conventional engines, the drive could fold space itself, allowing the ship to cross enormous distances almost instantly. The technology was experimental and dangerous, but it gave the Ark the ability to appear anywhere within the solar system without warning. Perfect for an ambush. Engineering teams reported the jump system fully charged. Weapons crews confirmed rail cannons and missile arrays were ready. Interceptor pilots waited inside their craft within the Ark's massive launch bays. Thousands of crew members stood at their stations, silent but focused. They had waited 30 years for this moment. Admiral Alvarez looked one last time at the image of Earth surrounded by alien ships. Then she gave the order. Engage jump drive. Deep within the Ark, gravity generators roared to life. Space around the vessel began to distort as enormous energy fields folded the fabric of the surrounding vacuum. Stars outside the observation ports warped and stretched. For the alien fleet above Earth, nothing appeared unusual. Their sensors were focused on the planet below. They believed the operation was already complete. But millions of kilometers away, humanity's hidden guardian vanished from the darkness beyond Pluto and began its jump toward Earth. Space above Earth remained quiet for the alien fleet. Their ships maintained stable formations while automated harvest platforms continued descending toward the surface. From their perspective, the operation had already succeeded. The planet's defenses had collapsed within hours. Orbital infrastructure was neutralized. Communication networks were silent. Humanity was finished. Alien command vessels monitored the surface as if observing a completed experiment. Their analysts recorded patterns of human behavior while machines continued extracting metals and scanning oceans for biological resources. Then their sensors detected something impossible. A sudden distortion appeared in the fabric of space near the outer edge of Earth's orbit. At first it looked like a gravitational fluctuation, an anomaly too brief to classify. Their systems attempted to analyze it, but before a full report could be generated, the distortion grew violently stronger. Space bent inward. Gravity rippled outward like a shockwave. And then something massive forced its way into existence. The Ark emerged from folded space without warning. 8 kilometers of reinforced human engineering materialized in orbit, its enormous hull reflecting the distant light of the sun. Alien sensors erupted with alerts. Unknown vessel detected. Extreme mass. No prior signature. No origin traceable. The fleet had spent centuries studying Earth's technology, but nothing in their records resembled the object now appearing beside them. Before the alien commanders could react, the Ark fired its first salvo. Massive electromagnetic cannons launched tungsten projectiles at extreme velocity. The rods accelerated silently through the vacuum before smashing into the nearest alien destroyer with catastrophic force. The impact shattered the vessel instantly. Its shields collapsed under the kinetic energy, and the hull fractured into burning fragments that scattered across orbit. The alien fleet attempted to reposition, but the Ark had already fired again. Another kinetic strike punched through a cruiser, splitting the ship in half. A third projectile tore through a command vessel, rupturing its reactor core. Within seconds, the alien formation broke apart. Their ships had never encountered weapons like this. Most advanced civilizations relied on energy systems, precise beams, and controlled explosions. Human engineers had chosen something far simpler and far more destructive. Momentum. Every projectile the Ark launched carried the force of a nuclear blast without radiation or warning. Inside the Ark, thousands of crew members executed their training with ruthless precision. Targeting officers tracked enemy ships across tactical displays. Engineers rerouted power to the rail cannons. Drone operators deployed swarms of autonomous attack units that surged outward like metallic storms. The Ark moved aggressively through the center of the alien fleet. Enemy weapons finally began to respond. Brilliant energy beams struck the Ark's armored hull, washing across layers of reinforced plating. The impacts rattled the massive vessel but failed to penetrate its defensive structure. The Ark kept firing. Human interceptor craft launched from the ship's hangars and accelerated into combat formations. Pilots weaved through the battlefield, targeting alien engines and communication systems with surgical strikes. For the first time since arriving in the solar system, the alien fleet faced something they had not predicted. Humans were not fighting defensively. They were hunting. Alien ships attempted to retreat to higher orbit, preparing emergency jump calculations. But before they could escape, the Ark activated another system. Gravity disruptors expanded outward from the vessel, distorting the surrounding region of space. The field interfered with faster-than-light navigation systems, trapping the alien fleet inside a distorted pocket of gravity. Escape was no longer possible. Rail cannons fired continuously. Drone swarms overwhelmed damaged vessels. Interceptor pilots disabled engines and targeting arrays while the Ark's main batteries finished the job. Alien ships began breaking apart across orbit. Some exploded in violent flashes of energy. Others drifted helplessly before being destroyed by another barrage of tungsten strikes. Below them, billions of people on Earth watched the sky ignite with distant flashes of light. At first, no one understood what they were seeing. Then the impossible became clear. Alien ships were falling. Burning wreckage streaked across the atmosphere as fragments of destroyed vessels descended toward the oceans and deserts below. Within minutes, the alien fleet's formation had collapsed entirely. Half their ships were destroyed. The rest were crippled and attempting desperate retreat maneuvers. But the Ark pursued them relentlessly. Humanity had waited decades for this battle. And they were not about to let their enemy escape easily. The battle above Earth ended faster than anyone expected. Within 30 minutes, the alien fleet that had arrived with absolute confidence was shattered. Destroyed vessels drifted through orbit as silent wreckage. Others burned in the atmosphere, their remains scattering across oceans and deserts far below. A handful of surviving alien ships managed to escape the Ark's trap, pushing their damaged drives to maximum output as they fled toward the outer solar system. For the first time since they had entered the system, the invaders were running. Inside the Ark, no one celebrated. The crew had trained for this moment too long to mistake a single victory for the end of the conflict. Tactical displays still showed multiple hostile vessels escaping beyond the orbit of Saturn. If those ships returned to their civilization with full intelligence on humanity, the next invasion might not be so careless. Admiral Sofia Alvarez studied the retreating fleet in silence. For decades, humanity had wondered what contact with alien life might look like. Scientists imagined peaceful exchanges of knowledge. Philosophers debated whether advanced civilizations would act as mentors. But the truth had arrived in orbit with 27 warships and harvesting machines. The universe was not gentle. Earth had been marked as a resource. Alvarez knew what that meant. If the alien civilization believed Earth was valuable, they would eventually return with a larger fleet and better preparation. Waiting for that day would only repeat the same mistake humanity had made before, hoping the universe would be kind. Humanity would not make that mistake twice. She gave the next command without hesitation. Pursue the surviving ships. Across the Ark, navigation systems recalculated trajectories. Interceptor squadrons received new coordinates as they prepared to move beyond Earth's orbit. Engineers redirected power into the Ark's engines while weapon crews reloaded the massive rail cannons. For the crew, the mission had just changed. They were no longer defending Earth. They were taking the war outward. The Ark accelerated through orbit, leaving the planet behind as it chased the fleeing alien vessels toward deep space. Human interceptor craft raced ahead, tracking engine signatures from the damaged fleet. The aliens had expected humanity to beg for survival. Instead, humanity was following them. Within the Ark's interior, thousands of trained personnel moved through corridors and command stations with calm efficiency. These men and women had spent decades preparing for interstellar conflict. Many of them had left Earth knowing they might never see their home again. They had accepted that sacrifice for one reason: to ensure humanity would never be helpless. Behind them, Earth slowly stabilized. With the alien control systems destroyed, satellites began rebooting. Military communication networks reconnected. Aircraft returned to the sky. Across the world, billions of people stared upward, trying to understand the battle that had just saved their civilization. For most of humanity, the hidden Ark had never existed. Now it had become their shield. And their sword. Far beyond the orbit of Neptune, the damaged alien fleet struggled to escape the solar system. Their ships were crippled and their formations broken. Emergency transmissions were already racing toward their home territory, warning their civilization that something had gone terribly wrong. Earth was not defenseless. Humanity possessed a warship capable of destroying an invasion fleet. What the aliens did not yet understand was something even more dangerous. The Ark was not simply a defensive weapon. It was the beginning of humanity's expansion. Its massive interior carried factories, laboratories, habitats, and enough resources to operate independently for decades. Thousands of explorers, engineers, soldiers, and scientists were already living aboard the vessel. They were prepared to travel far beyond the solar system. Prepared to build new colonies. Prepared to confront whatever waited in the wider galaxy. On the Ark's command deck, long-range sensors finally locked onto the retreating alien ships. Their damaged engines left bright trails of energy across the darkness of space, making them easy to track. Admiral Alvarez watched the data update across the display. For centuries, humanity had wondered if they were alone. Now they had their answer. And the first civilization to threaten Earth had already learned another truth. Humans did not surrender quietly. The Ark's engines roared to full power as it surged forward through the outer solar system, closing the distance between hunter and prey. Earth had survived its first invasion. The galaxy was about to meet the species that refused to stay helpless. And this time, humanity was the one bringing the war.